So let's get started on topic 9. I do it this way and then I can chop them up into smaller videos. It's not really just to make us all seasick. So disputes in relation to contract law are more likely to relate to what the contract means than whether there was a contract at all. I know you've spent the last 8 weeks exploring whether there was a contract at all, and we've done that to make sure that we understand how a contract can be formed. But if you actually look at contract disputes, if you look at the litigation, you'll find there's much more judge-made law about how to read the contract than there is about whether there was a contract in the first place. So part of that is identifying what the terms are at all. So there might not be any dispute as to whether there was a contract, but there will be a dispute as to whether particularly representations that were made in the lead up to the signing of the contract were included in the offer or not. So in ascertaining the terms of a contract, the courts need to distinguish between both these two things, promissory and non-promissory representations. So promissory representations, which ultimately are terms, are the promises that are made that form part of the contract, that on acceptance form part of the contract. But then we have this other idea of these non-promissory statements. So I want to drill down into what they are and how we work out what the difference is between them. So in particular, we look at things like advertising material, puffery, opinions, and then move through into this idea of representations. When is a representation itself either a warranty, a term, so a warranty or an express term, not express term, an essential term, and then what are the actual terms of the contract itself. So this idea of promissory and non-promissory statements is just another way of classifying some of the material that we deal with. I mean, you will have noticed this sort of ongoing, every concept that we have, we try and sort of find ways to make sense of it, to classify these different areas. So something that's promissory is intended to be binding. It's a statement that's made with the intention that it's relied on. Now, I'm using intention here in the way that lawyers use it, in the way we were talking about it over the last couple of weeks, where objectively it appears to a reasonable person, taking into account all that was said and done and all the information available to the recipient of the representation, that the representation was intended to be relied on. If a statement is promissory, then failure to keep the promise has a consequence at law. So it either gives a right to sue against the contract or potentially even a right to terminate the contract that's created, depending on the classification of the statement itself. Some representations fall into this category, some don't. Non-promissory statements are statements that are intended to attract somebody to the negotiation. They form part of the invitation to treat. Some of them are wild, crazy things, clearly not intended to be held to, but are intended to induce somebody into a conversation. Some are just invitations to treat, advertising, making it known that a product or a service is available for sale.